Good evening to everyone. Good evening to everybody. Sanibonani. Sanibonani. Goeienacht. It's the same. Ekali. Bauni. Thank you very much. Professor Daniel Mashau, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment, Professor Bilainu Oboirien, sorry about that, our esteemed guest tonight, Professor Bilal Patel, good evening, sir, our respondent tonight from UNISA, senior leaders of the university, members of Senate who might be here, distinguished guests, students, all of those who have joined us here and virtually, a very good evening to you. It is a great honor and special privilege for me to welcome you, Prof, and to welcome everybody back home in your village of Yembe, Owan East Local Government, Edo State. I wish to also welcome everybody who has come here, your special guests and your colleagues here present. This is a proud and joyful, yet a landmark moment for all of you. For you, Professor, for us here at UJ, for higher education sector in South Africa, in Nigeria and beyond. What is an inauguration of a professor? An inauguration of a professor is a public ceremony in which newly appointed professors are inducted into office by the Vice Chancellor, whom I'm representing tonight, and deliver their inaugural address. The ceremony has its roots in the medieval university and serves many purposes. In other words, this inaugural lecture serves as an expression of welcome and an entry for new professors joining the circle of colleagues who are already professors. Welcome. Secondly, this is a platform for professors to display their expertise, as you will hear later, in their discipline and showcase their research. In the colonial traditions subscribed by many universities, assuming the role of a professor refers to the gown and the cap. Once we have listened to your inaugural address, the gown denoting the professorship will be formally assumed. As such, an inaugural lecture is a rite of passage following the confirmation of your appointment as a professor. This evening, we will therefore listen to you, Prof, as the gown goes to town. By this, I mean that the power of the inaugural address is when the expertise is showcased beyond the corridors of the university and reverberates throughout society. In the past, there have been narrow conceptualizations of what universities stand for, almost mistaking them for serving the purpose of the economy or being utilitarian in state. Far from the truth. I hope today you can break out of these narrow conceptualizations, and reflect on the university as contributing to public good, working towards societal impact. One might ask, what is the role of a professional, which you are? Edward Said, in one of his articles, defines the role of an intellectual as one who commands a vast knowledge of a specific discipline, as I think you will do tonight, the one who is rigorous in the analysis of literature, the one who views being an intellectual as a vocation, and the one who functions as a kind of public memory to recall what is forgotten or ignored, to make the connections that are otherwise hidden, and to provide alternatives for mistaken policies. It therefore remains for us as a university with a Pan-African vision to derive our mandate as intellectuals and as professors. And importantly, the question is, how do we embrace the role of a professor as a disruptor while continuing to be flagship carriers of our discipline? So this evening, we will listen to Professor Bilainu Oboirien as one further step in the journey of being a professor. This is a journey which does not conclude, Prof, once this lecture has been given. Notwithstanding this, inauguration lecture does create an opportunity for a self-reflecting pause in the journey of being a professor. So I extend my congratulations to you, and as I do so, I invite the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, Professor Daniel Mashau, to come and introduce you properly. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My task is very easy. It's to introduce the man of the moment, Professor Oboirien, to all of us. And we have written the history in the books that you have, but I will be saying it nonetheless for those who don't want to read for themselves and for those who want to hear it many more times. Professor Bilainu Oboirien was born in Nigeria. He attended his primary school education at Army Children's School and high school at Command Secondary School. He obtained a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria in the year 2000. He later obtained a Master's in Chemical Engineering specialization at the University of Cape Town in 2006. In 2012, he obtained a doctorate degree in Chemical Engineering from Wits University with a focus on the gasification of high-ash South African coals under fluidized bed conditions. He is presently a professor at the University of Johannesburg. Previously, he worked as a senior researcher at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research and as a part-time lecturer at TUT. He joined the University of Johannesburg in February 2018 as an associate professor and was promoted to full professor in October 2022. He is a chartered engineer with the Engineering Council of the United Kingdom and a member of the Institute of Chemical Engineers. He is also C-rated by the National Research Foundation of South Africa. The overarching goal of his research is to solve technical problems associated with thermal recovery of energy from solid fuels to achieve net zero carbon dioxide emission and the circular use of waste material generated from the thermal recovery of energy and for the storage of renewable energy. His areas of research are combustion and gasification of biomass, carbon dioxide capture, waste to energy, and energy storage, as in lithium-ion batteries. He has co-authored 65 articles in high-impact journals in the field of energy and fuels. He has written about 15 peer-reviewed conference papers, 5 book chapters, and 1 provisional patent has been filed. His publications has been cited. He has a Scopus H-index of 19 and a Google Scholar H-index of 22. Professor Oboirien currently supervises 6 doctoral students, 4 master's students, and mentors 2 postdoctoral research fellows. He has graduated 5 doctoral students and 10 students in master's and mentored 1 postdoctoral fellow. He has taught many courses at UJ at undergraduate and graduate level. He has successfully obtained local and international funding from the NRF, CSIR, REDISA, and the Erasmus European Union Mobility Funding. Professor Oboirien is well cited. His publications are downloaded by peers and 53% more than the average, as according to the field-weighted view impact based on the UJ bibliometric report in the last 5 years. Professor Oboirien has served as a reviewer for many local and international journals, and he currently collaborates and does research with international experts to create more knowledge and practical solutions to facilitate a worldwide net zero emission and circular economy by improving low carbon energy processes. This is just part of the story of Professor Oboirien. More is expected to be done as he continues his research. But welcome, Professor Oboirien. Thank you for giving us this time to speak about yourself.
VC functionary, Dr. Nolita Vukuzwa, my dean, Professor Daniel Masha, the dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, my respondent, Professor Bilal Patel, all members of Senate and senior leaders of the university, my HOD, Professor Tebohu Mashifana, all UJ staff, students, and my families and friends that are invited, both online or protocol observed. It's a pleasure for me to stand before you today to give my inaugural lecture. When I was informed in BDA that I was going to give a lecture, I looked about 2 topical issues, which is energy transition and circular economy. And I framed my topic around these 2 and see how my research interface with these 2. So, as we all know that there's a big drive to transit from from high fossil fuel to low carbon energy. And the key driver of this is renewable energy. But the challenge of renewable energy is that it's intermittent, it's variable, and there's a need for you to develop storage solutions. It could either be a material form or in the process form. So my research cut across all this. So I'm going to talk about this. The outline of my presentation, I'm going to give a background of my journey. I've come a long way. I'll give an introduction on the topic. I'll talk about biomass gasification as it affects energy transition in combined heat and power, also in production of transition fuels and chemicals, and I also talk about our research contribution, myself and my group members, the group I lead, over the last 10 years. And I'll give some reflections and feature work. And lastly, I will end with a recommendation. Just like when the dean introduced me, Prof. Marshall said I went to a military school. I went to a military primary school. I also went to a military high school because my dad was a soldier. I'm proud of my military background because it taught me discipline and hard work. The picture that you see there, I can remember when I showed it to my kids, and they said, I look so skinny there. But I told them that I was actually handsome there. And that picture was taken when I was equivalent of grade 10 in South Africa. And that was the time that we had to choose subjects for the senior grade. Initially, I wanted to study accounting because of one of my uncles was really encouraging me to study accounting because at that time in Nigeria, a lot of interest in cooperative banks, and a lot of his friends they had cooperative banks. But I was also good in the sciences. I was good in chemistry. My elder sister, who was a year ahead of me, was also very good in chemistry. I used to use her notes. And I was accommodated in my school because we had good system that we could accommodate commercial students, like they say those days, and science students. After I finished, I studied chemical engineering in Obafemi Awolowo University. Obafemi Awolowo University, as the word says, Oba in Yoruba means king. It's a leading university in Nigeria, the first university to have chemical engineering. The picture you see there was the day of my graduation. It was a bittersweet moment for me, in the sense that I was graduating, but a day earlier, my mom had an accident. And we were in the hall, just like I saw my dad. I'd already gone a day earlier because I was doing my National Youth Service, which is a compulsory 1-year training you have to do in Nigeria, in a different city called Ogbomoso. I was in a university, I was like a junior lecturer. And when I was in the hall, I stayed with I came 2 days early, I can remember. I stayed with my younger brother, who was here from Sweden. He was in his final year. And we were in the hall that day, we were waiting for my parents. So I saw my dad, I asked him, where's mommy? And he said, no, it's fine. So after the ceremony, he told me that no, my mom had an accident that is quite serious. That, actually, she was going to buy something to prepare food for that day. And she survived it, but a lot of people died in that accident. Thank God she's with us. She would have loved to attend today because of challenges of visa. She could not attend to be here physically, but hopefully they are listening online. So after I finished my degree, an opportunity came for me to come to South Africa to study for a master's at UCT. A master's was a specialized master's, chemical engineering, but was process engineering. So we did a lot of courses on biological science. But my project was basically on the process engineering part of solubilization of low-grade coals to produce phenolics, which are key ingredient for antioxidants. And that basically my journey with coal and gasification. So after my master's, I got an opportunity to come down to Gauteng through the CSR. My boss is seated here, Dr. Brian Knott. Was a PhD, PhD, but I was registered at VIT. That means that I was doing my PhD part-time. I was working, I was also doing a PhD. And my PhD was on gasification of low-grade South African coals. There was a need for because in South Africa, the quality of coal were degrading, and in the boilers they use for burning of the coal were pre-vaporized boilers that takes high-quality coal. So there was a need for us to look at fluidized bed gasification because fluidized bed gasifier can handle poor-quality coal. So I worked on gasification with some of my colleagues there, and we gasified coal at pilot-scale facilities and at lab scale using the bubbling fluidized bed reactor. I worked at the CSR, and at the CSR I was exposed to a range of energy projects, energy production, storage, the value chain of energy. And after 10 years, there was an opportunity for me to join the University of Johannesburg, which I always wanted to move to academia to be able to give back to. That was me at the CSR. I joined the University of Johannesburg in 2018 as an associate professor, where I continued my research in energy production, CO2 capture, waste to energy, and also introduced process modeling of low carbon process, because I had to teach process design, and that I had to fuse it in my research too. And now let's go to the topic. Enough of my journey. Like I said, energy transition, to low carbon is a key. It's a key topical issue. And the International Energy Agency has identified bioenergy as a key role, has a key role to play in the transition from fossil fuel to low carbon energy system. And in their roadmap, they said that if bioenergy can be, contributions can able to achieve net zero in 2015, based on the report that was shown. And what technology, the different technologies you can use to extract energy from bioenergy. The technology that was identified in another of their reports is gasification. And they said gasification can assist in energy transition and also in the circular economy. And circular economy, basically, the concept is basically that you don't produce by linear production, rather you produce in a circular process so that you can increase your resource efficiency and you reduce your emission and your waste. So what's gasification? Gasification 101, it's a thermochemical process. It's carried out at high temperature conditions. Sometimes can also be at high pressure, combination of both. When you look at pressurized gasifiers, and the presence of what we call gasification agents, such as air, oxygen, CO2, a mixture of everything. And in the gasifier, there are 4 different zones: a drying zone, pyrolysis, and your combustion zone. And your key product, your product gas, mainly syngas, tars, as byproducts, and your char and ash. There are a lot of reactions that's taking place in the gasifier: the carbon reactions, oxidation reactions, shift reaction, your methanation reaction, and your steam reforming reactions. And the different type of gasifiers, the type of waste you are also dictates the kind of gasifier you select for you to extract your energy. So if you have pure biomass, you could use a fixed bed reactor, a fluidized bed reactor. If you have mixed waste, maybe you have like municipal solid waste, you have paper, you have grass, you have plastics and everything, you could use a fluidized bed reactor, use a high temperature reactor. But if you have a wet waste, you use a supercritical reactor. And after you have gasified, the gas you get, there's a lot of impurities. You need to clean your gases. And you go through a gas cleaning process, a pressure screening of different processes. And that gas can either be used for different applications. You can either use it for combined heat and power, produce electricity, you produce heat, or you can use it to produce chemicals. You can use it to produce foils, hydrogen, like the green hydrogen we're talking about, or something like that. You can produce natural gas, and you can also capture your CO2 from the process. You can secrete it. On these days, presently now, you can use the CO2 to produce chemicals. The history of gasification and energy transition. Gasification has played a key role in energy transition for the last 200 years. In the early 1800s, gasification was used to produce town gas, which was used, town gas, to light streets in London and also in North America and Maryland. After the internal combustion engine, gasification was also used to produce electricity. The gas from the product gas was used in the internal combustion engine to produce electricity. And also during the wars, gasification was also interfaced with Fischer-Tropsch process to produce transportation fuels. The syngas was used as a raw material to produce hydrocarbons for the transportation industry. And recently, gasification has also been adopted for biomass production to produce renewable energy projects all over the world. And presently, the key ones, which is the focus of this topic, is basically that gasification can be integrated with solar and wind energy in modern energy systems, either as storage or as a backup for load deficits, and also to achieve flexibility in the energy value chain, either you produce electricity, heat, gas. Also can also be used to develop a circular economy and to achieve net zero. The diagram we see there, basically, you could see the circular economy basically where you have raw material. In this case, was represented as biomass. It could be any raw material. It could be tires, waste tires. It could be even clothes, used clothes, waste plastics and everything. It goes through a processing process, which is a gasifier, basically, a gasification process, and you get your product and you recycle your raw material into that process. In this case, gasifier can produce what we call energy vectors, which has applications in different phases. It could produce biochar, can be used for energy storage. It can produce syngas that can be used to produce electricity, heat, and transportation fuels. So that basically helps us to transit and be able to store energy, because variability of renewable energy is the key challenge in the penetration of renewable energy. So that transition will be easier, will be quicker, and will be cheaper. So in modern energy systems like the one I've shown here, when you have excess in renewable energy, because of the challenge about renewable energy is that when you produce so much, especially maybe in the afternoon, you have so much sun, the demand is low. So generally, what a lot of people would do, which is the easier way, you curtail it. You basically what you waste it, because your storage technology, like batteries and co, are still not in terms of the level, in terms of the capacity. So there's a way for you to store at a very large extent. So power to gas is a very good concept. So gasifier can produce your CO2 and the hydrogen, so the electricity you use to split water, you get hydrogen, and you can now store the hydrogen easier, or you can use it to produce methane, or you can use to produce diesel or the liquid fuels. And these applications can be used for heating domestic users, or for transportation fuel, or for heat source in an industry. It can also be used to balance the load. Like you can see in that diagram that I showed here, that's the energy production and spot price in Germany, September 2022. You could see that the renewable energy was, the load was not enough, so they had to balance it with electricity from a biomass gasifier. Or you can also use it to balance not only electricity, heat, especially in Europe where heat applications are in, and also gas in your gas grids. In a combined, how does it work? Combined heat and power. A biomass goes through a gasifier. It could be normally pre-treated. After a gasifier, it goes through a gas cleaning process and can be used, passed through a gas turbine to produce electricity, and the heat can also be recovered. So what that means is that there's flexibility in the system. You can produce electricity, you can produce heat, or you can produce both of them at different ratios of this, based on the spot market. Because going forward now, you'll be buying electricity like you're buying shares online. There's a spot market, because previously, you pay at the end of the day, but you can do what you call a spot market, because the prices of this thing will be different, because the storage, and it will be a challenge. So if you were to improve the efficiency of that process, you can produce the fuel cell. The solid oxide fuel cell is one key one for high temperature. So you improve the efficiency of the process, and you can also use it to what they call it for heat storage. And you can also take that gas, clean the gas, to synthetic natural gas, and you can use it for different applications. So you can use it for mobility, in compressed natural gas in buses, or you can put it into the gas grids for you to use it for heating, either domestic, residential, or for industrial heating, like Egoli gas that we see in Johannesburg here. So a lot of applications you can use for that. And if you were to want to produce chemicals, you can take that gas, pass it through a catalysis process, and you can also shift that gas to produce hydrogen. You have your hydrogen, and you produce methanol, ethanol, your different hydrocarbons from your FT process. And these are called the synthetic gas, and this could be used for different applications. Especially recently, the focus now has been in the aviation industry, where it's very difficult for you to decarbonize, and there's a lot of interest in producing synthetic fuels from this process. And you can incorporate renewable energy in that process. If you get excess electricity you use to split water through electrolysis, and you produce hydrogen, you produce your synthetic natural gas, a methanol, and you can use it for different applications. So now I'll talk about my contribution in this field over the last few years, just some few publications and we've done. So like I said earlier, my journey with gasification started with my PhD. The focus was to gasify high ash South African coals, high ash, that means on very difficult coal to burn, very unreactive coals. My first contribution was basically I correlated the gasification performance of 3 different coals that is used in ESCOM power stations in Matla, Duva, and Grootekloof, and against different chemical physical properties, mineral and micellar content. And we found that the micellar content is a key variable in the reactivity in the gasification efficiency of the process, and the mineral ash content interaction also has a role in it. And this work was published in Foil Processing Technology, a high impact factor in journal in the field of energy and foils. And this work has been well received by the citations we've received over the last few years. The second contribution basically was I developed a mapping procedure to evaluate the mineral-char interaction during gasification. And the reason is that when there's an interaction between the char and the mineral content, it reduces the, what they call it, the gas mass transfer of your gasification agent on the surface of the char, and you have a reduction. So there's a need for us to be able to get techniques to be able to evaluate it. And this work was published in Energy and Foils, and also be well cited. And the last contribution was basically to look at gasification at different oxygen conditions environment. We look at air-blown, oxygen-blown, and enriched blown, and we saw that the properties of the chars also changes. And also this was we were able to use to improve our gasification efficiency, and we were able to reduce CO2 emissions, and we also published in Foil high impact factor in the field of energy and foils. And the citation, we have received pretty good citations on this work. Based on these learnings, I said that we can use gasification for any solid foils, alcohol, waste material, biomass. So when I joined the University of Johannesburg, my first PhD student, basically I was to look at biomass gasification. But the challenge about biomass is that the energy density of biomass is quite low, and the moisture content is very high, very difficult to store, very difficult to transport. So there's a need for you to pretreat it. And 3 different pretreatment methods were studied. The first one was leaching, dry torrefaction, and wet torrefaction. You can see from the same diagrams that I showed there, the pores of the wet torrefaction will have a higher pores, followed by the dry torrefied biomass, and the last was the leached one, compared, and the raw one was the 2 pores. And we evaluated this work in using the reactivity index, and we also have similar results. And this work has also, we also got about more than 20 citations in the last 2-3 years we published this work. And based on this, we, as chemical engineers, obviously, after you have developed a process in the lab, you want to look at the economic feasibility of that process. And we try to say, okay, well, if we already established that torrefaction can improve the gasification efficiency. And when we gasify, the syngas, as I said earlier, we use that as like a feed to other applications. In this case, we wanted to produce electricity and methanol. So we developed a process model to look at the technical viability of that process. If we have a plant that produces both products, having torrefaction as a pretreatment process. So we had four scenarios. The first scenario was the combined process of torrefaction and gasification, producing electricity and methanol. The second one was a combined process of torrefaction and gasification, but we are only producing electricity. And the third one was no pretreatment, we are producing electricity and methanol. And the fourth was no pretreatment, we are only producing electricity. And the result we obtained, because we wanted, the result we obtained was basically, we saw that torrefaction has a high influence on the amount of syngas we produce, the yield of the syngas, and also the heating value of the syngas. The heating value is very, very low, because if you want to use it for electricity producing, if you have a higher heating value, obviously you're able to recover more electricity and heat from it. And also because you have a higher syngas heat, and also the ratio of your hydrogen and your carbon, this particular ratio that you need for methanol synthesis, you're able to achieve that ratio. Your methanol production is also higher compared to without torrefaction. And we observed that our scenario one, which combines both torrefaction and gasification, and also both products, electricity and methanol, was the most viable economic scenario. And when we did a scientific analysis on the different variables we used, we saw that the price of methanol and electricity, as well as the cost of raw material, were the most sensitive factor affecting the the financial viability of the process. The other contribution was that a gasifier, as I said earlier, is a complex reaction happening in a gasifier in a reactor. And it's always difficult, and there's a need for you to determine the performance of a gasifier, because you need that if you want to design your plant, to know what you can recover, the amount of energy you can recover for your process, for you to do your. But the challenge is that for you to do that, you need to do a lot of experiment, which is time-consuming and also capital-intensive. So there's a need for us to develop a model that can do predictions based on, if you have, like I said earlier, we have different types of gasifiers, and you can have different type of foil and different type of conditions. So I co-supervised the PhD student with Prof Bilainu Oboirien, who is in the audience here, which developed, used different algorithm to study data set of about 350 experimental data of biomass, coal, blends of biomass and gasifier. And we could see that from this schematic basically of the concept, we took data from gasification of coal, corn cob, sugarcane bagasse, and we evaluated different gasifiers, updraft, downdraft, fluidized bed, and central gasifier, and we used the proximate and ultimate analysis of these different foils and also different conditions, reaction conditions like temperature and residence time. And we're able to predict key performance variables to evaluate a gasifier, like cold gas efficiency, heating value of your gas, carbon conversion efficiency. And this work was published in Renewable Energy Journal, and we've received a lot of citations, high impact factor. We also did the same thing for torrefaction, because obviously logically, if torrefaction is a key concept, can you also predict it? And in this case, we had to do it, we did not only do a prediction, we also did an optimization study. And we used artificial neural network and response surface methodology to look at the different ratios of our blends and our conditions. Because why do you torrefy? You want to enrich it. You want to increase the heating value. You also want to increase the enrichment value. So we saw that our AN model was more reliable than our RSM model. And this work was published in Biomass and Biomass Engineering. These are key high impact journals in biomass energy work. The other contribution, again, was gasification is one of the technologies you can use to recover electricity, heat, energy from waste. But it's also a biological process, which is anaerobic digestion. All over the world, you can either have a gasifier or you have an anaerobic digestion. But when we saw that in the literature, the uptake of these waste-to-energy plants all over the world is quite low. It's okay, can we combine both technologies and see if the economic viability will be different? With my master's student, co-supervised by Professor Sadeko, when I was at the CSRO, we developed a financial model to evaluate the gasification efficiency of the hybrid system. We saw that the hybrid system, bringing them together, improved the economic viability of it, but the key sensitivity analysis variables that can also affect the process if the alternative of those values are this. The energy price, the capital expenditure can affect it, but the variables that are less sensitive are your operating costs that are both fixed and variable. And this work was published in Waste Biomass Valorization, and we have received more than 40 citations in the last 4 years. So in terms of now, energy storage, I said earlier, there's a need for you to store your renewable energy. From the diagram I've shared there, you can see there are different technologies used for storage. Flywheels, batteries based on the capacity and the discharge time, compressed air storage, pump storage, and power to gas, either to hydrogen or to methane. So basically, how does it work? When you have excess electricity from your renewable sources, because you cannot store it easily, because the capacity of the batteries are not high, you use that, you split water through electricity process, you get hydrogen, and hydrogen you can use directly for, in industry or for mobility, for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, or for power generation, or for heat supply. But hydrogen is also a little bit difficult to store because of the flammability and some of the hazard. So you could decide to react it with CO2 from a traditional coal power station through a methanation reaction, which is called Sabatier reaction, to produce methane, and you can store methane easier. So you have either of those. You can also you can use to produce liquid fuels like Fischer drops to produce diesel, kerosene, and things like that. So we had to evaluate this for the South African road system. So okay, if we have excess electricity and we cannot store that, can we use it to produce hydrogen and methane for vehicle applications in South Africa? So we used a benchmark using the integrated resource planning of one of the key planning tools of energy in South Africa for renewable energy, and we calculated the balance, the surplus you're going to have, and said, okay, how much can you produce? How much hydrogen and methane can you produce in that process? And we will basically match it with the vehicle that the demands of the vehicle. Basically, in South Africa, we don't have a fuel cell vehicle presently, but a lot of applications are more on the forklifts and trucks in the mines. While for the compressed natural gases, we have buses in Pretoria and in Johannesburg. And this was being supervised by myself and my respondent here, and with my PhD student who's running up his PhD here at the University of Johannesburg. Recently published the result in sustainable energy technology. And the key is high impact factor 2. Resource assessment of the future based on the IRP 29 reviews that we can generate about 13 terawatt per hour of surplus electricity of renewable energy. And we can see that now, even in South Africa, especially the places that you produce renewable energies in the Northern Cape and Eastern Cape, there's a great constraint. And there's a need for you to store. You cannot, either you improve your grid capacity, or you store them using power to gas, what were recommended. So we said that based on our calculation, we said, based on that amount, you can produce twice the amount of hydrogen you require to support your hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, while only 19% is you can only meet for your complex natural vehicles. So there's a need for you to now import about 162 kilotons of natural gas to meet that shortfall, that deficit. But in terms of your emissions, you can displace for your hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, you can displace 7% of the of petrol used vehicles based on the 2019 figure that we used. And you can also reduce the emissions of about 1.6 megaton of CO2 per year. But you have a lower one for your methane, about 364. So the other part of it is in terms of the material part. I said we're working on power storage and we're working on batteries. In batteries, our key focus is anode materials. Work with Prof Ndungu I think is in the audience here. We're co-supervising a PhD student. A traditional way of producing anode materials could be through the traditional wet chemistry, or you can also use the new technology now of 3D printing. So the first was to basically look at the literature and see what is in the literature. We saw that there are challenges, even though 3D printing has a lot of advantages, of like you can produce it in one step, you can control the structure, but you have a lot of challenges in terms of you can, the material challenges in terms of your slurry component, and also your applications. And this work was published in Journal of Power Sources, high impact factor in the field of batteries and energy storage. And the other contribution was basically with my undergraduate students. We tend to achieve resource efficiency. We look at coal waste. We say, okay, South Africa has been using coal to produce electricity for a lot of years. There's a lot of discard coal. Can we use that raw material, that waste material, to produce anode material for batteries? And also coffee waste. And we put it through a carbonation process, and we were able to test the CVs. And we observed that our discard coal has a higher interconnection of our lithium ions than our coffee waste. And that means it has a potential to work as an effective electrode than your than the coffee waste. And the other thing we also looked at was in batteries, like we're all aware, there's a lot of challenges, especially I could remember there was a time that if you had to travel in a place, they would say if you have a Samsung battery, you should not take it because of fire issues and everything. The thermal reactions that cause hazard. So we had to study that as chemical engineers because our background is heat transfer and things like that. So the first thing we do is that the electrode can be a carbon source, can also be a silica source. So the PhD students synthesize a silica-based material and test the thermal stability of this. And we were able to establish that the thermal abuse of that material we synthesized started at 5 hours, and the onset temperatures were a little bit about 71 to 94. My contributions, my teaching philosophy, I try to have a nexus between my research and my teaching. Because I see that most academics will say research influences teaching, but I have seen that teaching also informed my research. I've seen that. So I've used my expertise in process modeling and energy systems to improve my teaching. For the undergraduate courses I teach, and also in the honors courses I've taught. Based on my research expertise, I've introduced 2 innovative topics in my honors design, top energy and power integration for energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is the key instrument in transitioning to a low carbon energy system. And also, I've also introduced life cycle assessment, because the key drive now is to what they call sustainable energy design. And one of the tools we use as chemical engineers is life cycle to evaluate a sustainable design. And I prefer project-based activities. Most of the time, my students, I give them, apart from the normal test on the right, I give them project-based activity. And over the years, I've been teaching energy systems and design for the past 3 years now. I've given topics like solar production of hydrogen in South Africa from solar sources. I give case studies. I give different variables. I use like a mine. Last time we used Anglo, because Anglo, if you could follow, I think in the news, Anglo commissioned the largest electrolyzer in South Africa to power their, to replace their diesel for their fleet. So my students basically will try to replicate that in their design. I give each group different group design, give them different variables to be able to evaluate it. And also, this year I gave them an hybrid of design of high solar system and a biomass gasifier. The reason why we do this is that, especially for rural South Africa, where if you have a solar panel in your system, but it's not connected to the grid, you need a backup for that. So the biomass gasifier can be like backup, and we'll give them different values. In this place, they have to get a lot of skills to be able to design next generation systems, sustainable system. And I must emphasize that recently one of my students told me that he got a job recently and said a lot of these things were quite useful for his interview. So I feel very, very fulfilled. The key takeaways is that biomass gasification is a key technology for energy transition and for circular economy. It can be used to achieve flexibility in your energy systems for electricity, to produce electricity, heat, or gas storage. It can be integrated with electricity to store solar, store solar or wind, or through power to gas or liquid. It can also be used to balance the load deficit from renewable energies. The treatment of biomass through torrefaction can increase the gasification efficiency, and subsequently can also increase the electricity production and methanol production. And gasification can be coupled with other technologies like anaerobic digestion to help in the economic feasibility of the waste-to-energy plants in South Africa. It can also be used to increase the penetration of renewable energy in South Africa power and transport system, and also project-based learning on gasification and hybrid systems, solar and gasification, to our energy system or design courses to equip students with key skills for the design of sustainable energy processes. And just like the VC functionary mentioned that this lecture is not the end. So I'm not going to stop working. The future story is basically that we've established that torrefaction can assist gasification to produce different energy products, electricity, heat, and voice. As chemical engineers, we need to carry out the life cycle assessment in the process, and some of my students are working on this, my final year student, and also my master's student are also working on that. And also in gasification process, we produce hydrogen, but the purity of hydrogen is always not as high as what we want. And there's a new research looking at what they call substrate-enhanced gasification. So we're looking at that with my master's student and with my collaborator in Torino, in Polytechnic Torino in Italy. And we're also looking at producing materials for energy for heat storage and for energy harvesting. So you can also harvest energy from mechanical processes. And I also said we're working on batteries. We're looking at modeling and simulation of thermodynamic reactions in lithium-ion batteries. And lastly, we are also looking at developing digital twin technologies for biomass gasifier and for power-to-X processes. Vice Chancellor, I would like to acknowledge, I've finished my lecture. I would like to acknowledge the people who have played a key role in my career. I will start with dedicating this talk to the memory of my late wife, and Dr. Kafayat Oboirien, who passed away in 2019 after a long battle with cancer. Your sacrifices and support in my life will surely not be forgotten. I would also like to thank the Almighty Allah for His favors, guiding me through against all odds in my academic journey. I also like to thank my teachers from primary school, high school, university, who has invested in building my FEBE education foundation. I also want to thank my PhD supervisor. I'm indebted to her for allowing me to grow as an independent researcher. I would like to thank the late Professor Bilainu Oboirien, my professor in Nigeria, who assisted in starting my career. And I also want to thank Dr. Brian Knott, my mentor at the CSR, who guided me at the beginning of my working career at the CSR. I also want to thank the CSR for granting me a PhD in my studentship and opportunities to start my career. And also I want to thank Professor Sadiku for mentoring me. I also want to thank my respondent, Professor Bilainu Oboirien. He is a collaborator, moderates my process design course for me, and also moderate his own at UNISA. I would like to thank you for your critical feedback, your honest feedback. It has actually added value to my academic career. I would like to thank the University of Johannesburg for the support given to me and my students in carrying out our research. I also want to thank the Faculty of Engineering and Business and Environment, starting from the Dean, Professor Dana Masha, for his support, my HOD, Professor Tebu Machifana, and my colleagues in the department for their support. I also want to thank the Department of Chemical Sciences, where when I joined the University of Johannesburg, there are no facilities for me to do my research. I always go to rush there. A lot of my first PhD students, or two of them, used a lot of the labs there. And Prof Ndungu basically came in to assist in some of the synthesis work we do. I also want to thank my sponsors, starting from the University of Johannesburg. The National Research Foundation, I've received generous funding from them, different fundings over the years. European Union for funding my research, my mobility. And also I want to thank the CSR for, like I said earlier, for my funding, my PhD. My collaborators in Chalmers University, my student did some bench work there. They also co-supervised my PhD student. In McMaster University, in NTNU in Norway, UNISA, and the University of Witwatersrand, where I also work with colleagues there. I would like to thank, as I said, an academic or a researcher professor has the ideas, but the tools are the student. You need the student to evaluate, to execute them. I want to thank my present and my past students. I would like to thank my parents. They eagerly wanted to be here with us physically, but because of visa issues I said earlier. I want to thank them for their support for myself and my siblings. I also want to thank my siblings, starting with my big sister, my small, which I call my second mom. She had always been my mom. She was a year ahead of me in high school, in boarding school. I can remember the first few years were, very difficult. With seniors, military style, discipline. You said obey before complain. They give you an order, you have to obey. So she had my back. I also want to thank Soli, my brother from Sweden, came in yesterday. He's been supportive of me. My brother in the UK, Issa, Jamila, and TJ. I also want to thank my collaborators. A lot of them are here. My friends, Prof. Ojumu came from Cape Town, Prof. Isa, Prof. Daramola, Prof. Patel, Dr. Sidet, Prof. Molu, Prof. Daramola, Prof. Bada. I also want to thank my family and friends. A lot of them are here. Some of them are also listening. Prof. Adeleke, Prof. Raji, Dr. Adewi, the Busimis are here. Prof. Pedro, my elders, Mr. Robio, Dr. Adewi. A lot of people I cannot mention, a lot of them. And lastly, I would like to thank my wife. Thank you for coming to my life. Faith brought us together. Thank you for your support. I also want to thank my kids who are here, Ramana, Malik, and Aisha. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Representatives of the VC, Dr. Fukuza, Executive Dean, Professor Michelle, colleagues, collaborators, students, family, and friends, I would like to take a moment to express gratitude to the University of Johannesburg for recognizing Prof Oboirien's contribution to academia and for providing a platform for this inaugural lecture. Today, we gather here to celebrate a remarkable academic milestone. This occasion marks not only a recognition of Prof Oboirien's outstanding accomplishments, but also a testament to the enduring pursuit of knowledge and the spirit of academia. It is indeed a privilege and honor to have been granted the opportunity to serve as a respondent to Prof's inaugural lecture. Prof Oboirien, thank you for an insightful and illuminating lecture. Your research addresses one of the most pressing issues facing society, provision of sustainable energy. Although energy is an integral component of society, the energy supply sector is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, mainly due to the use of fossil fuels. As Prof Oboirien discussed, to reach net zero in terms of emissions requires an energy transition, a shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. However, the challenge with renewable energy, particularly solar and wind, is its variability. Much of Prof Oboirien's lecture converges on this point. How do we deal with the variability of renewables? He discussed the valorization of biomass to complement variable renewable energy, and secondly, the need for energy storage with emphasis on power to gas and batteries. Modern bioenergy, energy derived from biomass, plays an important role in achieving net zero and may represent 20% of the total energy supply in 2050, according to the IEA net zero emission scenario, almost triple the current supply. Gasification, as discussed by Prof, is a versatile technology which allows biomass to be converted into a variety of valuable products, thus a key enabler of the circular bioeconomy. Prof Oboirien has vast experience in gasification from his initial work in his PhD, continuing at the CSIR and lately at the University of Johannesburg. Prof Oboirien has made significant contributions in the field of gasification, as attested by the various publications by involving some of the challenges associated with gasification and improving the gasification process. An example of this was experimental insights into biomass pre-treatment methods to improve gasification efficiency. Furthermore, options of co-production of chemicals and electricity via gasification were considered. A comprehensive techno-economic assessment was conducted to explore various alternatives. Findings show that co-producing methanol and electricity is more economically viable than producing electricity alone. Co-feeding feedstocks to the gasification process was another option considered. A techno-economic assessment of biomass and coal of varying ratios for combined heat and power production was considered. The results show that co-feeding coal with sawdust in a ratio of 1:1 enables high profits as well as lower emissions than processes operating with coal alone. Another option considered was combining gasification and anaerobic digestion for the valorization of municipal solid waste through waste to energy. A techno-economic assessment reveals that such a configuration is economically viable. A sensitivity analysis was also conducted to determine the major variables affecting the process. Another fascinating advancement to the field of gasification has been the application of artificial neural networks to evaluate the performance of gasification systems. Models were considered. The model can be used for evaluating blends of feedstocks for a variety of gasifiers. The model predicts various outputs, including the composition of the syngas, gas yield, the lower heating value, and coal gas efficiency. Methods of improving the model accuracy were also suggested and tested. Furthermore, an ANN model was developed for torrefaction, a pre-treatment technology. The model was trained on data collected for various blends of feedstock, such as coal, sawdust, and waste tires. The model was used to determine the optimal process conditions in terms of reaction time, blend ratio, temperature for torrefaction. In terms of energy storage, Prof Oboirien has developed a model for utilizing power to gas for storing excess renewable energy in South Africa through hydrogen or methane production. The excess electricity is based on the country's integrated resource plan. The study considered utilizing hydrogen or methane as transportation fuel. It found that hydrogen is more attractive than methane as a transportation fuel from both an economic and environmental point of view. Prof Oboirien has also published work on the advancement of batteries, in particular lithium-ion batteries for energy storage. In one study, coffee waste and coal discards and blends of these waste materials were utilized to produce an anode material. Coal discards were found to be more effective as an anode material. Silica-based materials were also investigated and found to be effective as an anode material. The use of 3D printing as a novel approach for silica-based electrode production was also reviewed. Thus, it is evident that Prof Oboirien has produced an impressive body of research and has contributed significantly to the growth and advancement of the fields of gasification and energy storage. Prof Oboirien's research work has also informed his teaching. As Prof Oboirien's external moderator, I can attest to his innovation in teaching by incorporating the latest tools for evaluating the sustainability of chemical processes in his honors design module. Looking ahead, I am excited to see where Prof Oboirien's research vision will lead us. His passion and generation of scholars and making meaningful contributions to society is an inspiration to us. In closing, I invite you all to join me in congratulating Prof Oboirien on this well-deserved honor. May his lecture today be a motivation for all of us to continue our pursuit of knowledge, to push the boundaries of our respective fields, and to foster the spirit of academic excellence. Congratulations. Thank you.
Don't they ululate in Nigeria? Thank you very much, Prof. I did promise people that the gown will go to town. And indeed, the gown went to town, meaning that you showcased your expertise. I didn't know there was something called gasification. I now know something. So I've learned something about it, and thank you so much. A mighty congratulations to you, friends and family, as well as colleagues. So I will be closing this ceremony now, and I also will be inviting you for something to bite. That's what we do in African culture. After this, we go and celebrate. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much.